The landscape of gender-based violence and the work to end gender-based violence and the struggle against gender-based violence, I would say, has changed dramatically over the past 6 or 7 years. Provincially, what happened in April 2020 was the mass casualty, and of course the year before that we had the DFI tragedy, the Tracadie tragedy, which saw the annihilation of the Desmond family, and these were very specific provincial moments which brought the issue of domestic violence, gender-based violence, to the highest level of the province.
The mass casualty was enormous, but even in that, it took a lot of effort by women's organizations to say that gender-based violence was a key component of this casualty that happened, and still there was a lot of pushback about that.
1995, the provincial government launched a document called the Framework for Action on Family Violence. And in that document, it said that the justice system is accountable for intimate partner violence and that there needed to be improved responses by the justice system. There was interagency coordination, which is where the Metro Interagency came into being.
The name of our project was Be the Peace, Make a Change. So it was at that time when we got that project, because even though we're based on the South Shore, it had provincial scope, so we were invited to come to the Metro Interagency table, which we had heard that had done work but among transition houses and women's centers and men's intervention programs at the time that Verona and Todd were spearheading with Pamela Harrison as well, that I think was asking at that time some of the very important questions.
Our role as the Metro Interagency was to really coordinate, collaborate, and support the work that was being done in the province at a community, government level around intimate partner violence. And to hold, though I don't think the government thought about this at the time, but we really were holding the government accountable.
And I've always had this disappointment about how community and government doesn't quite touch. And when it does, it's fractured, there's tension. Until, and this is my sort of optimistic story, the Domestic Violence Court started to develop about 6 or 7 years ago. And the Interagency Committee, and particularly the service providers, were instrumental in providing leadership to the development of the Domestic Violence Court.
There are so many aspects that intersect. You know, there's the social supports, the income supports, all of the agencies that are involved, government and NGOs, to really collaborate, to be able to speak with one another and to coordinate. And that just doesn't happen.
One of the big gaps for me is that we still do not have robust infrastructures for government-based systems and community-based systems to work together on these solutions. So, you know, there will be new legislation or new policies or a new framework that's developed by government, hopefully with some input from the people who are doing the response-based services on the ground and seeing what happens to people who are subjected to violence with consultation. So there's a large continuum of what really good consultation or engagement would look like. And then they make something happen and it has, we call it unintended consequences, but it's fully expectable consequences because they weren't working closely with the community-based people and with people who've been through it and have that lived expertise.
So there are people, there are communities who are living, who are underrepresented, who are underserved, who are overlooked, who are made invisible, basically. The policy has not been created with vulnerable communities in mind.
In my work on gender-based violence, it concentrated on access to housing, employment, and through all those areas of work, gender-based violence has been a very concerning issue and experience for many immigrant and migrant women.
I think there's a need for more representation of 2S LGBTQIA+ people, because we know that there's increased sexual violence for certain populations, and I think we need to hear more of their voices.
Where you spoke about the intersectionality, and for me the intersectionality between race and gender, and the barriers that creates, and the nuanced challenges and how complex that can be.
Sadly, we're not at the table. We're overlooked. Our voices is not at the table. When decisions are made, when we're not there. Which the Metro Interagency was the starting point for me.
I started with the Metro Interagency when I was in my second year university, I think. And at that point, I was really trying to get more out into the community to help out with gender-based violence, just because of how much I could see it affecting the people around me. And I think the Metro Interagency really gave me the confidence to go into different areas of gender-based violence prevention. So then I started working with SMU, with the Sexual Violence Support Center, working with athletes specifically on how to prevent gender-based violence. And then from there, I'm now in my 4th year, and I'm doing my honors thesis on mental health and resilience of gender-based violence survivors who are newcomers to Canada. So I think what's been super cool is meeting and connecting with so many amazing people that I really look up to at the Metro Interagency, and I think it really gave me the courage to go and do more in the community, and I knew that I had people backing me up on the Metro Interagency.
Since the very first meetings, it's you don't need an introduction. You walk in and you're with people who get it, even if they're connected differently to the work, but you're with people, all of you have the same aim in mind. It's in the title on family violence and restorative conversations. And I found it so beneficial just to me doing the work in terms of holding that space, and I understand that's part of the rationale as to why it was set up 30 years ago, for people to get together, to share knowledge, to share information, to advocate as needed, to just talk things out. What's going on with you? What is this? What are you doing these days? Just to be able to keep connections, keep that spirit alive. I think that has been, or that continues to be, the big strength of the Metro Interagency. It really succeeds, in my opinion, to bring that community touch to the work of all these different agencies, people, government, non-government, who are involved in the sector.
It was about having a go-to place where you could have those conversations and hear new things, put ideas on the table, advocate, go back to your workplace and share.
When I started doing this work, we still called it domestic violence, primarily. We were talking about violence against women and girls. We weren't really thinking about gender diverse people. In the place where I was, we also weren't talking very much about criminalized women. Women who either, as we know now, and as I have become more aware of the fuller spectrum of what happens with our pro-arrest, pro-charge, pro-prosecution policies, that seemed like a good idea at the time because it criminalized domestic violence or intimate partner violence. It said this is not okay, it is a criminal behavior. And because women are afraid of going to court or reporting it, and rightfully so, because their safety could become much more in jeopardy, what has happened now with the dominant aggressor decision that a police officer has to make in the 10 minutes they have to determine that, more women are being charged when they either fight back or defend themselves or are finally rising up to do something after years and years and years of abuse. And that's the moment when the police arrive, and so she gets charged without context.
And so we need to have our organizations that are out there, like the police, have culturally sensitive training in when they go to calls, how to be more compassionate. Also, we need to be more educated on why more of our Indigenous women are 5 times more likely go missing or murder, and 3 times more likely than non-Indigenous to be impacted by violence.
The police are not well trained in this, as we know. I think, they're trying. Since the Mass Casualty Commission and the RCMP, I believe, are making some strides, but still, some communities, Black and Indigenous communities, immigrant communities, newcomers, will very rarely call the police because there's so much more harm that comes to them from that system, that patriarchal, white supremacist, racist foundations of that system.
We have so many women that is impacted by domestic violence. And a lot of these women have children. And when we come to understanding the Indigenous people and understanding the trauma, the layers of trauma, understanding the intergenerational trauma, our women don't feel safe to report these crimes. Because one, the fear of losing their children. Child Family Services, when you call the police on domestic violence, usually Child Family Services is right there.
I think of the many children that are removed from their parents and caregivers by Child Protection Services, which is another traumatic event for children. It comes as a shock for them when that happens. There's no time to prepare. There's no time to pack up whatever belongings they might have. In the initial days of being in foster care, there's no access, no safe access, whether that be through FaceTime, telephone calls, supervised visits with parents and caregivers. And when I think about that, honestly, I just can't even imagine the trauma that is to a young child.
If you happen to be the most unfortunate of being subjected to intimate partner violence and also have children, and you are at the convergence of the criminal justice system, the family justice system, and child protection as well, is the most, what I think is the most torturous place that a mother can be in.
The other thing that I'm acutely aware of, unlike adult survivors who have a great deal of support, peer support, professional support, children don't. They have no peer support. And oftentimes in therapy sessions, children have said to me, "Do you know anybody else like me?" And I would often say, "Yes, I do. I wish I could meet them." And I say, "I wish you could too."
Because we see how far-reaching the impacts of gender-based violence are, and whether we're doing that work specifically or just supporting folks in our communities, it comes up. So for us to be able to come together and talk about that and bring forward solutions, I think is really, really amazing.
I think at a cultural level, there's still a lot of change to be made. There's still a lot of stigmatization, victim blaming. And I also think that we just need to get more community together and have both men and women and gender diverse people together to discuss these issues, because oftentimes there's rooms full of women, but that's only one part of the population that is affected by gender-based violence.
We need to step up to protect our women. And I'm not just speaking for Indigenous women, I'm speaking for all women. Like, we're into now the 16 days of action to hinder gender-based violence. A lot of work has been coming up to light. Like, again, the roundtable, the Justice Committee, you know, had this roundtable. Many of my partners have not been asked to sit at that table. And these are strong voices. And we need to continue having these strong voices there. Government needs to pay attention.
In some ways, we haven't made a dent in the numbers in 30 years. You asked what has changed in 30 years in terms of the rates of violence, sexual exploitation and human trafficking, sexualized violence. We haven't moved the needle on that in 40 years.
The understanding, that we need to move towards a greater equity, that already is there. Now, who can drive that shift? I mean, that is the big question, right? Again, we live in democratic societies, and civil society has the power to call government to task and empower, and government should feel emboldened and empowered to drive the change that civil society is asking for.
I'm just honored and grateful to be a part of the work that's being done. And so I'm coming from like a family member, but also coming from as a woman, a Mi'kmaq woman who's proud of her heritage and culture, but also standing side by side with our allies, with our non-Indigenous sisters.
I think this is an extremely dangerous time in our human history. I think it's gonna be a while before that changes. And so the thing that gives me hope are my colleagues, are the people who get it, are the people who are working their guts out every day to be there, to show up for the people who are most vulnerable, most harmed, most traumatized, in whatever way they can.
Will we eradicate violence against women and children and men? Nah, not the way our world is structured, not when we're set up as a capitalist, a neoliberal structures where greed and money is the most important thing, and we're killing our planet, and we're not allowing people to leave their countries, and the climate crisis. But I still have hope, and I believe that the interactions that we have with each other make a difference, and then that ripples on and impacts someone else, and we can make community changes. And there's some really strong advocates in the community now, really strong advocates, with great voices, loud voices that aren't going away. So yeah, I'm hopeful.